Hello, I'm Daegan the Dragon, and in this video I'll let you watch as I make a fresh batch of candles I'm making to gift to family and for testing. I wanted to practice my skills by making both 4 scented candles and 1 unscented molded candle in the same batch. I'm starting out by preparing a tray with foil. My scented candle jars will sit in the insulated tray. I'm also lining each jar with foil for further insulation. I started with 2 big blocks of pure beeswax, but it's more wax than I need, so I wanted to melt them down into a more manageable size. This process helps me purify the wax as well. To melt my wax, I'm using a double boiler setup with a small pot of water on the stove and a melting bowl nested in the water. The wax can't be directly on the heat of the stove because it might burn. Low and slow is the way you want to melt your wax, and the way you do that is with simmering water. While pouring the wax off into these ingots, I can leave behind most of the impurities as well. Now with smaller and cleaner wax ingots, I can melt down the amount of wax I need for my double batch. My math tells me I need roughly 624 grams of beeswax for my project here. Once my wax is melted down again, I can separate what I need for the scented candles, about 536 grams. Here's where I talk a little math, but if you want to make your own beeswax scented candles, this is good information to have. Beeswax can hold fragrance oil and essential oil at a ratio of roughly 5 to 10% of the weight of the wax. I decided to aim for 7% of the original wax weight. If I was making unscented candles, I would need 576 grams of beeswax for all 4 vessels. 7% of 576 gives me about 40.32 grams of oil. Now, I just need to subtract the weight of the oil from my original weight of beeswax to get the new adjusted amount of beeswax. What I am left with after gently blending is a mixture of 576 grams total, with 7% fragrance oil and 93% pure beeswax. This concludes the math portion of the video. Off to the side, I prepare the candle wicks. This is a thick beeswax-coated hemp wick I already know should be perfect for both my scented candles and my molded candle. I cut 4 lengths of wick for my scented candles, run them through the bottom of the wick tabs, then clamp the tips of the wick tabs closed around the wick to hold them in place. To hold the wicks in place as the candles cool, I made these homemade wick holders from bamboo skewers and tape. To place the wicks in the jars, I use these wick tab stickers to stick them to the bottoms. While I have my wax cooling down to the temperature I want to pour, between 155 to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, I have my tray of candle jars in the oven to heat up. With my wax cooled down and my tray out of the oven, I get to work pouring each candle. Afterward, I insulate the top of the tray with more foil. Letting the wax cool down slowly helps the candles come out looking nice. That's why all the foil is important. Now that my batch of scented candles are done, I can set up my candle mold for my molded candle. I start with a fresh tray and line it with foil to protect from drippings. I've already prepared 4 bamboo skewers with sticky tack to make a platform for my candle mold. The wick comes straight out of the bottom of the mold, so it needs to be suspended or the mold won't stand flat. I cut a length of wick and tie it to a wire I've bent into a needle-eye shape. I use the wire to pull the wick through the bottom of my mold, then snip the wick free from the wire. Then I add a wick holder to center the wick in the mold and keep it taut. Before I pour, I give a gentle spray of silicone mold lubricant. This will help me get the candle out later without damaging it. Now that my wax has reached my pouring temperature, between 165 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, I can pour. Why is my pouring temperature different from before? Beeswax has a melting point at roughly 155 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. I want to pour close to the melting point. If I pour too hot, my candle might end up with fissures or craters in the end. For scented candles, pouring the wax as cold as I can ensures I have a good flat candle top. For my candle mold though, I need the wax to be just a little hotter so that the details in the mold come out right. If I pour too cold, the wax might not fill every crevice and detail in the mold. If you're finding this video helpful or interesting, I would appreciate it so much if you would leave a like on the video and consider subscribing or following for more content like this. An hour later, my candle is just about ready to be pulled out of the mold. You can see the center of the candle is still light yellow, meaning it is still soft. I probably should have waited longer until the candle was more rigid, but I was eager to see how it turned out. It came out very nicely with full detail, though my thumb left an imprint in the wax that was still soft. Now that the candle is out, I trim the wick and fix a wick tab to the bottom. The wick tab is important for the safety of any candle, as it puts out the wick when it burns down to the tab. You can see the bottom of my candle is uneven. I'll use my melting pot again to melt down the bottom a little more flat so the candle stands firmly in place. With that, the dragon candle is finished. My scented candles have cooled down enough by now for me to trim the wicks and add the lids. Now, I'll let you watch as I prepare a special blessing for these candles. This is a witchy channel, and in this segment you'll get a closer look at my standard blessing ceremony. I was instructed to use this sigil specifically for comfort and relaxation. These are lavender-scented candles, so I wanted to encourage comfort and relaxation. The idea here is to infuse the candle with magic associated with both comfort and relaxation by using a sigil as a filter. Only the intended energy should pass in or out of the vessel. As I affix each sigil, I make sure it points southward. In my practice, I tend to work with the cardinal directions. I will endeavor to keep the sigils pointing south wherever I store them. I learned the method for working energy and magic you are about to see primarily by practice and feeling, but I am taking a Reiki course to refine this method further. I start the blessing by entering a meditative trance and start to pool energy between my palms. When I close my hands, I am coating them in the energy. With my index finger pointed as my wand, I circle 3 times to cleanse, protect, and offer reverence. Then, after building a little more energy, I charge each sigil with my intention. Lastly, I close my ritual and let the energy I've been working settle. The blessing is finished, but as the candles sit with their sigils over time, the spell will become more potent. The last step before I start to clean up is preparing my labels for the candle jars. I record the batch number, the scent, and the date. For my other 2 labels, I add a bind rune. This particular rune should help the candle gather and retain energy passively. The first 2 candles will be for testing, and the other 2 will be gifts. After placing my labels, I place my finished candles on the shelf to finish cooling down, with a jar of moon water that happened to be on the same shelf for storage. I hope you've enjoyed this look into my process. I've been enjoying making candles a lot recently, and I intend to post more about it in the future as I experiment and work towards establishing a candle-making business that caters to witchy customers. Do you have any questions about my process? Are you a practitioner of magic and spells? What kind of candles would you want for your rituals, for decoration, or for scent? Tell me in the comments, and your idea might become a future video. Until next time. This has been Daegan the Dragon. Have a blessed day.